welcome. I'm Cynthia Corsetti, executive coach, author, and speaker based in Sewickley, Pennsylvania. With years of experience in guiding leaders to realize their full potential, I've embarked on a new journey to bring those insights to a wider audience. Care to Lead, a podcast dedicated to diving deep into the world of leadership. In each 30-minute episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals from diverse backgrounds to explore pivotal moments in their leadership journeys, the challenges they face in today's ever-evolving business landscape, and the legacy they aspire to leave behind. Together, we uncover valuable lessons and insights that can empower each one of us to lead with purpose, compassion, and resilience. So whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey, join me as we discover what it truly means to care to lead. Hello, and welcome to the Care to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Corsetti, and our goal here is to elevate the voices of leaders who aren't just about the bottom line, but are committed to making a real difference in the world. So let's dive in and explore what it means to lead with care. Jaime Mann is a business leader and psychology expert who focuses on leadership development and transformational growth. Through her keynote speaking, program facilitation, and executive coaching, Jaime empowers others to create meaningful change within themselves and within their teams. Jaime is a passionate advocate for connected leadership and believes that we need to successfully lead ourselves before we can inspire, motivate, and connect with others. She's singing my song here, so I think we're going to connect really well. Jaime, welcome. And did I leave anything important out of this bio?
Hi, thank you. Probably that I love karaoke. Maybe that's something that needs to be in there. Other than that, I think you got it all.
What's your favorite karaoke song?
I'm so predictable. I always end up starting with Patsy Cline, and I'm all over the place. So I like to keep people guessing.
That's cool. That sounds fun. So you've had a journey in your career, starting out with wanting to be a psychologist, and then moving into construction and all these different pathways. I'd like you to tell me more about your business now. It's what got you here. Tell me more about the name, because I find it kind of interesting. Where did it come from?
Well, I for many years kind of was feeling like there was something kind of missing, which I think, working with people, that's a common theme that comes up with a lot of my clients, actually. And I wanted to do more back with my original kind of passion, psychology, working with people, that sort of thing. And so I began this journey into, coaching, starting working one-on-one with clients, working with companies as far as doing needs analysis and figuring out okay, what's the little missing piece here in teams and things like that. And so, I decided to create my own coaching and consulting company called the Amaryllis Project. I work a lot with female identifying clients. I mean, I work with everybody, but I really, really love working with females, women in business, high achieving women, just because I see a lot of myself in them. And I'm just really passionate about helping people kind of navigate through some of the things I've experienced myself. And so the company name, of course, has a feminine element, named after a flower, but the amaryllis flower is extraordinary, I feel, because it's this beautiful, showy bloom that comes out of something that doesn't look so special, just a bulb. And it's a bulb, you don't do much, and it sits on your counter. But these flowers can live for a long time, and they kind of persevere and have this determined hardiness to them that just kept coming back to me. And so that's why I decided to go that way with my company name. And project, because I feel that we're all a project in some respect, right? Like, I really believe that you never kind of arrive. You're always under a progression, right? So that's kind of why I landed on the Amaryllis Project.
I love that. I'm curious, there's a lot of series that Authority Magazine does, and I'm pretty particular about which series that I write. And I'm curious what made you choose this particular series on things that impacted you, influenced you from your childhood, that influence how you lead. What made you decide to take part in this series?
Um, well, I think that, throughout my own kind of growth journey, it became evident to me that my upbringing and things that happened decades and decades ago are still very relevant and still very important and kind of foundational in who I have become, right? And so I think that sometimes, like, I'm not a therapist, right? But I am very much interested in that whole process. And I've done a ton of therapy myself. I just feel that sometimes we are quick to dismiss how important some of these earlier kind of foundational experiences are. And like I say, I don't think we need to stay there. I think that's not what I'm about, but I think acknowledging it, accepting it, embracing it, coming to terms with it, however you want to word it, I think is really, really important as far as starting where you are now and going where you want to go, to be able to kind of within ourselves have that kind of acceptance. So this really spoke to me because I feel that, for many years I kind of dismissed earlier experiences. And it was only when I started really looking at them with clear eyes, honest, curious eyes, is when I was able to really make some really big gains within my own development.
That's great. I'm glad to hear you say that. I think that you get a concept. I have a book coming out myself in early spring. It's called Dark Drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire book is about things that happened in our past that subconsciously are impacting us every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And the key, and I think with what you do and with what I do, is yes, it's important to identify these things. It's important to because they're not going to go away. Like your
Right.
past experiences are never going to go away. They're always going to be with you. So it's learning to navigate the world, knowing that once you're more clear on that, it helps. But I think the other important aspect here is once you can do that, it kind of puts your empathy levels on steroids, because now you understand that everyone you're talking to has their own set of dark drivers.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think that, I wasn't myself, speaking from my own experience, I wasn't very good at being empathetic with myself. I'm very good being empathetic with others. And I think building that empathy within ourselves and being able to, like I say, acknowledge, accept, whatever. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all look back on things and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and that sort of thing. But really looking at like a curious eye with empathy, like, hey, I'm pretty decent where I am, and all of those things led me to here. Right. And to be able to be like, it is what it is. It's okay. And curiosity, it's that letting go of any judgment and just having a curious eye to sift through that stuff makes all the difference, I feel.
Jamie, in your article, you talked about being bullied when you were a child. And it wasn't just like a short period of time. It was a long period of time. Would you like to share with our audience what that was like, and how that's impacted who you are today and how you run your business?
Yeah, I recall kind of stuff started happening when I was more in, I want to say grade 3. It really kind of was quite daily, kind of more severe, grade 4 to grade 9 kind of thing. And so, yeah, all those formative years where, young people have their peer groups and they're extremely important, and kind of they build your self-esteem and, all of that stuff. I kind of was on my own. And so, basically I had it timed where, I walked to school. So I had it timed to the minute of like, I'm walking onto the school ground when the bell rings. And so, by the time I'm getting in the door, everyone's already kind of dispersed. So I had it down to the minute. I'd walk home for lunch, same thing coming back. And so I just kept my head down, tried to get through it. But looking back, what ended up happening was, trying to stay under the radar. Right. So not putting myself out there, not raising my hand, not going after, extracurricular stuff really that maybe I would have. So I kind of like really kept myself pretty invisible. And, for anyone who knows me now, it seems kind of unbelievable because I'm not that way. Like I'm the least invisible person, I'm told. So because I just have an energy and I like connecting with people and, if there's a stage, I'm on it, whether I'm invited or not kind of thing. But that took a long time to work through, like this whole way of being that I created to kind of get through every day is very different than who I am now. And it was a lot of effort and intentional kind of reflection and like pushing myself out of a comfort zone, which was extremely uncomfortable for a long time. But I think that the fact that I felt very, very isolated and alone for all those years has completely impacted what is important to me now. Like I never want somebody to feel that way. So if I'm in a group, if I'm running a workshop, if I'm just at an event and I'm speaking to people, like I'm very aware, I think, and very empathetic because I spent all those years kind of by myself, isolated, and really trying to read the room, right? Because I was working so hard to stay under the radar. I began kind of being a detective, like what's coming my way? What am I supposed to do to mitigate that? That walking on eggshells thing, which isn't fun, but I think has really helped me pick up on what people are feeling or experiencing. And again, I just don't want people to ever feel alone or lesser than or any of that kind of thing. So connecting with people authentically is extremely important to me now.
So I'm curious because as you're speaking from an adult perspective, and you're speaking on how you've been able to transition and be a force of positive from everything that happened. But I'm curious if you were to have a conversation with a young child that's going through what you went through, what is some of the advice that you might offer to them, or maybe even the parent of a young child who might be going through something like that?
Right. That's a really good question. I have 3 kids. I'm very cognizant of what they might be going through because I just remember what I went through. And I really, the idea that my kids or other kids experience that is like kind of heartbreaking. But at the same time, I don't want to be a helicopter parent and go in and fight everyone's battles and be like a mama bear. So I'm trying to straddle this like line. I would say that the most important thing is no matter what, being able to, give your kid a hug and have them feel that nothing that is happening has anything to do with them, because that's frequently the truth. I mean, for various reasons, this stuff happens, and a lot of times it has nothing to do with the kid, it's him or herself. I think today there's far more conversation around this kind of thing with teachers, with school administrators. When I was growing up, there really wasn't. No one knew what to do with it, right? I even remember talking to a teacher I trusted, and nothing came of it. right? So it was kind of like, well, I guess I'm just a defective human and this is what I get, right? Is kind of how I thought growing up, because nothing was happening to help. Today, the conversations are so much more prevalent. And I just think conversation and the policies that are in place, like for parents to get involved legitimately when there's something happening, but just to really work really hard so their kid knows there's nothing wrong with me, right? This is a thing that happens and we're going to fix it, and I've got people supporting me. That I think is so important, rather than a kid kind of feeling like there's no way out, nobody's here to help me, there's no solution.
So at the risk of impacting privacy issues with a child, how do you think a parent could monitor, or should a parent monitor the online space that their kids are in to protect them? Not because you're like trying to be nosy, but because a lot of this bullying is happening online these days, and it's such a small world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's been stuff in my house with my kids about, online, what they're going to be doing online, who are they talking to online, what apps are they on? Like, it's crazy. It's just so big. And I would say that, my kids don't really like me very much with the online stuff, because I find it pretty serious, right? I don't want my kids to just be doing anything online. I know how addictive being online can be. It's super easy to just, first of all, waste all your time being online. Kids being so impressionable and their brains are still developing. I mean, their brains are changing when all they do is click, click, click online. And then I also want to be very aware of what is happening on the bullying aspect, on the, there's a lot of people out there that are doing some kind of nasty things online. And I definitely am fully invested in knowing what they're doing. They hate that. And I just keep reiterating, like, it really isn't because I don't trust what they're doing. It's because I need to be aware of what's happening is more the thing. It's just, it can kind of run away from us pretty quickly. And I just keep reiterating that, like, it's my job to be aware of what's happening. And so that's what I do, but they hate it.
So as a leadership coach, right? I'm curious, as young people are coming into the workforce and they're getting their first jobs and they're just becoming a part of this culture, what's our responsibility as a leader to teach them how to have a corporate culture that we want? If you think about how they're growing up with all the online, everything that's happening in their world, it's completely different than what was happening in our world. And so they don't know necessarily day one what it means to have a professional image, to be what's the leader's role in helping teach that?
Well, I think that, realistically, when we have new people to the workforce coming to work for us, maybe it's somebody who's either new to the workforce or new to a newcomer to the country. I mean, no one's going to know everything, right? So, and I kind of just like to have open conversations with people without again, it's not about judgment or shame. It's like the fact that somebody doesn't know how to communicate in a meeting with a large group, or it is what it is. It's just about open communication. I think that as humans, I think we do have a responsibility, and we should be accountable to our teams that we work with, or to our new staff that come join the team, to really have clear expectations laid out. And it's just about conversation. If somebody's doing something or not doing something, right, to be curious about why that might be, and to get an understanding of their understanding or their knowledge. I think that considering the workforce, we've got so many different age brackets, we've got all sorts of people from all over the place. I mean, communication and clear expectations and conversations, I think, are extremely important. And in fact, I think if we kind of wash our hands of that and go, well, they should know, or I can't believe that's how they're going to behave, or whatever, I think it's really kind of unfair to just wash your hands of it and step out. Some people kind of disagree with me on that, but I just come at it from a human perspective. So I just think conversation is key there.
Reflecting on your past experiences, what advice would you give to young leaders who might be struggling with self-doubt or a sense of not belonging in their current environment?
Right. I think, well, I know that that's extremely common. Research shows those kind of feelings are more prevalent in underrepresented populations, right? Whether you're, say, the only female in a boardroom of a bunch of men, or whether you're new to the country or things like that, those feelings of not belonging can be really detrimental. First thing I would say is that's perfectly, air quotes, normal. Like, it's a perfectly reasonable feeling. You're not the only one feeling it. I think, again, that isolation, being like, I guess I'm the only one struggling with this, can really play a lot of tricks in our brains. Our brains are brilliant, but also, we can go on a spiral pretty quickly and then end up, holding back, not putting ourselves out there, right? Letting that self-doubt kind of run us. So first of all, it's perfectly reasonable. You're not the only one. Expect it, in fact. And I think that it's really important to connect with somebody that you can talk to about it, whether it is a coach, whether it is somebody you work with, that you're friends with, that you trust, whatever. I think as soon as you start talking about it, it takes some of the pressure off, and it takes some of the, just that feeling of isolation out. It puts it out there. It kind of takes the power away from it. When you start talking about it to people that you trust. So that would be my first thing, is you've got to find somebody you can connect with to talk to about it. Chances are, everything you're feeling, when you start talking to somebody about it, you start to learn very quickly that, wow, there's a lot of proof in my history. There's a lot of facts I can rely on that actually show me that I do belong here. Right. So I find that conversation with somebody to be very useful, because all of a sudden you start realizing, like, oh, actually, you feel this way too. Oh, it's not just me. And I'm actually, pretty decent at what I do. I do belong here. Right. And I just think it takes the power out of that doubt and fear.
That's actually the perfect segue into another question that you made me think about, is authenticity, especially with inclusion and vulnerability and courage, seems to be a crucial pillar in your own leadership model. Mm-hmm. So how do you balance being vulnerable and open with maintaining the authority and respect needed in a leadership role?
Right. That's a great question. And I think that's a lot of what keeps people from kind of being vulnerable, or like putting themselves out there as a human with flaws. I think what I know, I keep saying, I think what I know is that people want to work with or work for other humans. The thing is, there does have to be a balance between being vulnerable, as in, I know what I'm pretty good at, and I know where my strengths do not lie, right? Like, I know there's things that I'm not great at. But to be able to, through our actions and behaviors, demonstrate that there's an active progress happening in order to always become better and always learn, is one thing, right? So showing up in a way that proves that you do have credibility, you do believe in yourself, you're making steps forward, there's no trepidation or drama about it, right? Like I am who I am kind of thing. And then the other part is when it comes down to decision making, right? To be able to make decisions in a way that maybe I don't have all the pieces, maybe I don't have all the answers, but I kind of know what to do. There's a way I'm going to go about, say, getting the information I don't have. There's a way I'm going to go about communicating how I'm making a decision, right? I think that if we're vulnerable and like, kind of, I'm no good at this, I'm no good at that, wow, I'm such a doofus here, and I'm also not able to pull the pin and make decisions in a way that's logical and that sort of thing. I think that's when people are like, yeah, like that person is a nice person, but I don't really think they're a great leader, right? There has to be kind of decisions have to be made, and there has to be appropriate communication around them. I've worked with people or for people in the past where as humans, like they're great, right? But I didn't have the trust that they were moving forward in a way that was appropriate. And again, if somebody's waffly, right, flip-flopping, can't make a decision, I think in my brain, that's really where some of the problem comes in with vulnerability. I can't be stuck in my flaws. I can't be stuck when I'm confused. There has to be a way forward.
So you actually just again kind of speak about the importance of a growth mindset and moving away from just being fixed in the way of saying. Can you give an example of a time when adopting a growth mindset helped you overcome a particularly challenging situation, or maybe even enabled you to lead teams throughout a difficult period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, geez, I'm gonna have to strike that from my vocabulary. In the past, I had a completely fixed mindset for sure. And when we have a fixed mindset, in my experience, the one thing that I know is that fixed mindsets keep us kind of fearful, keep us small, keep us kind of doing what feels comfortable, right? And therefore, there's just no way to grow. I'm good at what I'm good at because that's how I was born. There's no way I'm going to get somewhere here because I'm just not good at that, right? If I'm not born with the skill, there's no way I can acquire it. And it's very empowering when you're working with people who maybe don't have all the answers. Maybe they're not good at something, but the way they look at it is, I'm just not really great at this yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just allows everybody to have the energy that we can overcome, we can get to the end of something, we can find a solution. And when I think of, in our construction office here, that's a big kind of a cultural belief system. Like we don't have to be good at it now. We don't have to know everything. In fact, we won't. Who's going to be good at everything anyways? Nobody, because we're humans and humans are messy. But being able to have conversations and coach even, ask the right questions to have people thinking about things differently. Like I love being able to see literally, when you think of wheels turning and somebody going, yeah, actually that does make sense. I can do it this way. Right. I think it's the conversations that help people kind of come up with their own solutions that are the most powerful. And that's what I think of with our team here is just the conversations to be able to empower others to have their own solutions, right? I just find it kind of drudgery when leaders are going to just tell everybody exactly how to do stuff in this way only. I just think it's kind of an energy killer. And I think growth mindset, to be able to encourage people to utilize a growth mindset, is just so much more fun. It's just so much more fun.
How do you notice when you're in a team meeting, or I'm sure over the years it's happened, that you see someone who isn't, they're not contributing, and is it a growth mindset issue? Are they in a fixed mindset? Is it an insecurity issue? How do you go about drawing them out?
Um, well, I acknowledge that it's depending on the team, right? It's going to not be as easy in certain environments, depending on how big the group is, right? That kind of thing. And I find that if we're on a team and somebody isn't contributing, or you kind of sense that they're not here, right? They're not engaged. Sometimes that can be a mindset thing, depending on what we're talking about. But in my experience, when people aren't engaging in a team meeting, more likely it's related to kind of not feeling safe. And so depending on, when I think of our own group here versus, say, if I'm working with other companies, right? I'm always looking at, first of all, what are we talking about? Like, is this a hot topic or a hot button issue, right? Or are we just talking about something mundane, right? And so I'm looking at, what are we talking about? I'm trying to get a sense of the dynamics on the team, right? Sometimes you can see who's kind of meshing with who. You can see if somebody brings up a point, how the response is, and gives you an idea of what might be happening. A lot of times it's, we can say, all hands on deck, we're collaborative, no idea is a stupid idea, like all of that stuff. But, the words that may be on your wall in your office, right, are sometimes very different than what's actually playing out at the table, right, with your team. And so how are people actually responding, right, when somebody comes up with an idea or some sort of contrary belief, right? And psychological safety is a big one, right? Mm-hmm. Do I kind of get shut down, made to feel silly, stupid if I voice my opinion? Do I get kind of, the rest of the team gangs up and kind of shoots me down? Like, what's really happening? And like, for many people, they're surprised that in their mind, what is playing out is very insignificant, right? No big whoop. Yeah, so somebody said this when you raised your hand to bring something up. No big whoop, who cares? But really, from that person's perspective, I mean, we do have to be really cognizant of how impactful our behaviors and actions and words are on other people, right? It's really not about, well, they're being too sensitive, right? It's more like, the vibe here is not really collaborative. So how do we make it safe?
So that brings me back to a word you used earlier, is curiosity. And you say curiosity can prevent judgment and lead to better decision making. How does curiosity play into employee engagement?
Well, I think curiosity is one of those things that we're really good at when we're kids, and it just gets kind of beaten out of us a lot of times, right, as we kind of progress into adulthood and corporate careers and all that kind of stuff. Curiosity is underrepresented. Curiosity is something that we can build with intention and when we want to be curious, but it starts with self-awareness, first of all. So, for any of us, like me, like judgment, that was like my go-to. And, looking back, I see where that comes from. But, now I really want to enable people to bring their best self to work, to be their best selves on their projects and that sort of thing. And that's not going to happen if I am not curious. Because if I show up with judgment and I know everything and this is my way and this is the right way, like all of that stuff, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. And when we talk about teams that aren't engaged, like that's a huge problem across industries. Every single company I I work with. And if you look at, say, the research from Clifton or Gallup, right, with Clifton Strengths and all of that stuff, when they look at engagement, it's like one of the things that builds engagement is when we as leaders, as companies, have a appropriate system in place for appreciating each other and providing feedback in a way that is safe, has a curious mindset or a curious way about it. It's like, if I am a leader and I want to engage people, like, I better be actually curious about who they are as people, and I want to know them as people, and I want to see what they are really, really good at, right? It's just not going to happen if I don't approach it from a curious place, right? Because, like, we meet people, we have one conversation with people. If we're not aware, we've already formed a judgment about them, right? You know, and it's not based on true fact. I just think curiosity is key if we're talking about engaging people and working with them in a way that feels really good.
So as we wrap up our discussion, I'd like to know, what is the single most important lesson that you've learned that you would pass on to emerging leaders to help them on their path to success?
100%, I would say that to any new leader, you belong in any room you walk into. You're in that room, you were invited to that room, you've walked into that room because you do have what it takes. And now that you know that, it's your job to bring the best out of yourself, to do the best work you can do. I think that we are very, very good at talking ourselves out of great opportunities. 100%, and I see it all the time. And people need to be their biggest supporters, and they need to be able to remind themselves in a way that feels like empowering, right? Because everybody's different, but you deserve to be in any room you walk into, and it's your job now to show everybody in there what you've got.
That's awesome. How would a leader who could maybe use a little help feeling that confidence that they belong there, how could they find you? How would you like them to reach out to you?
Well, you can find me, my website, www.theamaryllisproject.com, also on LinkedIn, under Jaime Mann. But I love connecting with people, and I really love working with people in a way that is customized and makes sense to them, right? So I do a lot of work depending on exactly what's needed. I kind of customize it.
Awesome. And all the links, this video will be posted right inside of your Authority Magazine article that's already live. So we'll bump that up with that. And all the links will be under this on the YouTube podcasting, so they can find it there as well.
Perfect.
Thank you all for joining us today. And Jaime, especially thank you. Your stories and insights remind us all of the power within to overcome challenges and shape a better future. Remember, leadership is not just a title, it's an action and influence that can start with anyone, anywhere. Until next time, remember, leaders who care to lead. Thanks for watching the Care to Lead podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos and updates.